Hey good people, Sammy Ashe here, Executive Director of the Ashe Academy, and your host of our Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. Since it's the 10th episode, and that's my lucky number, I think it's time to finally announce our spring collection contest. So here's how you enter. You must be following at the Ashe Academy on both Facebook and Instagram. Post your square design with an interpretation of illustrating the arts and STEM in harmony on either Facebook or Instagram. Be sure to tag us at the Ashe Academy using hashtag Spring Collection Contest. There will be 3 winners. First place gets $250, and their design will be added to shirts, hoodies, and mugs in our store. Second place will receive $150, and their design will be added to shirts and mugs. Finally, third place will receive $75, and their design will be added to shirts. Details for final submissions are as follows. This has to be sent to info@theasheacademy.org, a PNG file, 300 DPI, up to 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. Just make sure it's a square shaped image. And then our deadline is April 30th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Winners will be announced on May 10th, 2021, which is also my birthday. So I'm super excited to let you guys know who were the winners. So get those posted as soon as possible to get those likes, because the top 3 likes will be the top 3 winners. All right, let's get started with the show. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Ashe Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. I am Sammy Ashe, the Executive Director of the Ashe Academy, and we're joined today by, I would say, one of my longest term family friends, family at this point, Lisa Cuizon. She is the owner of Cuizon Ballet Centre, who has a long teaching career over 37 years, and opened her own studio in 2001. And she had her dream to offer training at a professional level since she had seen her own dream come to fruition. So I really wanted to take this opportunity to kind of give a highlight to her, since I have known her most all of my life, but we're finally getting a chance to kind of talk about her career. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us.
Of course.
So let's get started. But how did you get into the arts? Like, I won't even start with dance, but just like where did you get your start?
Well, I actually come from a family of artists. So, and they were very successful artists, painting and commercial artists, illustrators. Even my own dad was an illustrator. And I still remember very, very young, I probably was around 4. My aunt was on television being interviewed in a morning program because her art was so beautiful and she was so successful. So I was at my grandma's house, and I still remember watching it and thinking to myself, I'll never be able to keep up with that. I don't think I could compete with that. And that was just my thought. And years later, I was around 6. No, I'm sorry, I was 7. I begged my mom for ballet classes, and she kept saying, all right. And I'm like, no, I insisted. I wanted to go. There was a ballet studio, a little ballet school across the street from my house. And I grew up in Chatsworth, California, in the Valley. And one day she walked me over there, and I walked in, and the woman at the desk said, what is it you'd like? And I said, I want to take ballet. She asked me how old I was. I said I was 7. And she said, well, then you need to come back in another year, because we don't take anyone till they're 8. And I was so angry. Marched home with my mom, insisting that on my birthday, you're bringing me back here. And so I started at 8. What we didn't know was that school was directly connected to the School of American Ballet, which is New York City Ballet's official school. So I was very, very lucky. The ballerinas of New York City Ballet would come once a year to teach us. in those days, in the 60s, there was the Ford Foundation Scholarship. There was a lot of money in the arts from Kennedy. So I got my first local scholarship when I was 12. And at 15, I was invited to the School of American Ballet in New York City. And it was just like a dream come true. I had strived for that. And in those days, it wasn't you were just invited, because today they can say, oh, you're invited, but that means you also have to fork out $10,000.
Oh, wow.
But in those days, it was, if you were invited, it was all paid for. You were fully scholarshiped. You got per diem, and you got your plane flight. So you got everything. You did have to find where you were going to stay. They didn't have, in those days, they didn't have dormitories or anything. So my mom came with me and pounded the pavement and found a little apartment in New York. We stayed for the 6 weeks, and I knew that, and I was, to be honest, I was the worst one in that room. I was placed in a very high level, and I knew without a doubt I was the worst one in that room. And it was very trying for me to show up there every day. But what it did was it sparked me to realize how much harder I had to work. And I'm not really a person that gives up, and I'm not a person that cowers or is overwhelmed and scared. But what it did was like a kick in the pants of, wow, if I expect to be on this playing field, I have got so much of work ahead of me. And I came home so determined that I wanted to be on that playing field. And I went to my teacher and I told her, and I said, and in those days, in many studios, and it's still like this, it's very regimented. You're not allowed to cross over classrooms levels. And I said to her, I can't make it as a dancer on just one class a day. Is there any way I can take the lower class and my class? And she'd never considered that. And she said, I'm going to have to think about that. And the next day she said, I thought about it, and yes, you can do that. So I would take 2 classes a day. And then I was invited the next summer to School of American Ballet. I was not invited to stay for the year, which I was incredibly disappointed. And it was kind of devastating for me, to the point where I thought, I'm going to quit ballet. And I ended up, I stopped for like a couple of weeks. And it occurred to me that I was spiting my own face, because what I realized that I actually just love dancing. I want to dance. And, maybe it's not going to be School of American Ballet, but I'm going to figure out something. And I told my parents I was moving to New York right away to dance. And they said, oh, I don't think so. You'll be staying here at home and graduating from high school. And I was furious. And then when I was about ready, my senior year, I said, I'm going to be moving to New York to be a dancer. And they said, oh, you don't go to college. We're not supporting you. And I was so mad. So, and I said, well, I'm not going to go to a UC campus. My mom said, I want you at a UC campus. And I said, well, I'm not going there. So she said, well, you better figure something out. And I ended up being invited to Stevens College, which was in Missouri. It was for modern, which I didn't like at my young age. I was 17 when I graduated from high school. And it was an all-girls college. My mom was so excited because we had gone to the alumnus party, and they were all these wealthy women. And my mom felt like, I was set, I was so disappointed, and I felt like I was going for a jail sentence. And I was thinking, I hate modern. Missouri, all girls. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And in a last ditch effort, without telling anybody, because I figured if I don't tell anybody, nobody's going to know if I get rejected, I wrote a letter to a very famous ballerina who was had just joined the staff of Skidmore College, which is a prestigious school in Saratoga Springs, New York. And I told her my plight. I told her my story. And I said, I really want to be a dancer. I've been Balanchine trained. I have to go to college because my parents are making me. And it's Stevens College, and I hate modern, which I hate to even say that. That sounds so terrible today. But at my young age at that time, that's where I was at. And I said, is there any way I can come to that school and study with you? Um, my grades don't really reflect that I'm smart, but I am. And so I waited. I got a letter back right away. And she said she'd gone to the president of the college and I had a scholarship. And I better prove that what I'm saying is true. So I showed my
Lisa,
parents. I
okay.
showed my parents the
The
letter.
name of this episode is going to be Willpower and Determination because, my gosh,
I
you're like,
know.
I am making this happen. I don't care what you guys say. It's going to happen. I
That's
might be
that.
deviated somewhere, but guess what? It's eventually going to happen my way.
Yes, I mean that was pretty much what it was. Is like, I'm going to figure out a way. There's this wall here. I'm going to climb over it. I'm going to crawl under it. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to do something. But this wall is not going to stand between me and being a dancer.
Oh my gosh.
So I showed my parents the letter, and they said that's fine as long as you're going to college. And we changed my plane ticket, and I left the next week. And her husband picked me up at the airport. And I went to Skidmore College for 2 years, dancing under her auspices. I am very fortunate. For whatever reason, she loved me and she took me under her wing, and she mentored me. She taught me. She gave me everything. But let me also tell you, she was hell on wheels. She was a diva to the T. I mean, you could look her up. Her name is Melissa Hayden. She had the title of prima ballerina assoluta, which not everybody gets. She had been with New York City Ballet and had also danced with ABT. She was a powerhouse and as tough as nails, as tough as anyone can come. And when you talk about a woman from that era who made it, well, you know, the women of that era who did make it in whatever field they were in, they were made of steel. And she expected that from us too. And so she was grueling. The kids today would never survive her. Never. So and I attribute the fact that I made it as a dancer to her. Had my path not crossed with hers, I don't believe I would have made it as a dancer. But she cracked that whip so hard, and I danced.
So would you say there was anyone else that kind of set you up for, I guess, coexisting with her approach, or like, okay, I've met so many other people that set me up for this
My
relationship.
parents,
Okay.
my my parents were pretty brutal as people. They had a difficult marriage and relationship. I was used to a lot of contention, difficult, tough personalities that were very outspoken, spoke their mind openly without hesitation, which was what she was like. Um, my parents were whatever they were going to do, they were perfectionists in what they were going to do, and they expected only the best from you. My mom was somebody that you could never do anything right, so I was used to that too. And I was pretty steely because of that childhood. Um, I don't know that someone who came from a very soft childhood would have survived. Um, but you know, I think that's where it's from.
Awesome. So how does your dream of dance transfer into teaching? Like, because those have to be
Well,
completely different experiences.
yeah, you know, it's a very, very different experience. And when I was very young, and when I say that, I'm talking about when I was at college. My teacher that raised me here in Chatsworth, her name was Sheila Roseanne, and Ellie Zimmerman. They were partners. They came to watch us and watch me at Skidmore. And I still remember them looking at me and saying, you know, one day you'll teach, and because it's important that you give back. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I'll be damned if I'm ever going to teach. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to be a dancer. And I didn't say anything, but I remember that in my mind, thinking that, like, and how dare you, you know, put that on me? So I never had any dream of teaching. I wanted purely to be a dancer. I had no dream really of even wanting to be married or anything. My career, my dance path was what I wanted. And I danced all over the country. Um, I was very fortunate because I had the background of Melissa, who brought people to see me, uh, and so I was given different offers. In the end, I ended up going with her to Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle. So that's where I started. But like I said, I wanted to be a dancer, and that's what I did. I danced for 4 years later in Cleveland Ballet. And then I was married at the time. So I got married um, while I was with Cleveland Ballet. My husband was from here in California. And so we would travel back and forth between the two states. It was difficult. And I realized, honestly, I don't know if my marriage is going to last if I continue to keep dancing here. So I decided to leave and move back to California with him. And with the intention of starting a family, because at that point in my life, I had decided, I think I do want a family. I'd seen too many women who had been dancers who had sacrificed their life for dance, and I now saw them as, they're pretty lonely. They don't have a lot left. That is, I mean, they have their dance, which is awesome, but I wanted more than that. I wanted a family. So I came back with the intention of doing that. And the first week I was back, a woman approached me at Stanley Holden's, which was the only professional school in Los Angeles at the time, and said, do you live here or are you visiting? And I said, oh, I've just moved back here. And she said, well, I have a company, a ballet company. And if you'd like, I would love you to join my company. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. And so I joined the company. And so I was only home for like a week. And I then danced with Los Angeles Chamber Ballet, which existed at that time. It was a small company. And I ended up dancing until I was 3 months pregnant. So my last performance, I was 3 months pregnant on stage at the John Anson Ford Theater. And that was, after that, I realized, I had intended to have a career and have children. And I got myself back in shape after I had Cody, my oldest son. And the woman who was the director of the company, Vicki, said to me, you will always have a job with me. You always have a position in this company. So as soon as you're ready and you want to come back, feel free, call me. So I called her and I told her, I'm ready. I'm getting back in shape. I'll be back into the company. Got back in shape. We were supposed to start rehearsal the next week. And I had to call her to tell her I was pregnant with my second child. At that point, I knew, yeah, this isn't going to happen. And I knew that being a perfectionist type personality anyway, I knew that I wanted to be a really good mom. And I knew that wasn't going to be possible to be the best at dancing and the best at being a mom. I knew that I'd sacrifice my kids if I did that. So I left without ever intending again. Actually, I started teaching when I was pregnant with Cody because the director of that company, Los Angeles Chamber Ballet, was exhausted after a rehearsal. And she said, I'm supposed to go teach in the Valley and I'm so tired. Is there anybody that wants to take my place? And I said, I'll do it. And I went and I taught. I ended up loving it. I loved it so much. It kind of took me by surprise. And I really embraced it. But then I left the dance world completely. I wanted to raise my kids, and it was Asia who begged me to do ballet. And I researched what was the best ballet school in Conejo Valley. I found it. I took my daughter Asia there anonymously. I didn't tell anybody I was a dancer. Let her just be a little girl wanting to take ballet, and would sit there as a mom and not say anything. And one day, the owner walked up to me and she said, "Somebody told me that you were a professional ballet dancer. Is that true? And why are you hiding?" And I
Like,
said,
like, don't.
um,
I'm not here for that.
"Yeah,
I'm not.
exactly." And she goes, "You're not getting out of this. You're going to be teaching for me."
Oh
And I
my
said, "I
gosh.
can't. I'm a mom. I have three kids." And she said, "No, you can do this, and just come as a guest teacher." So I guest taught one time, and she begged me, "Please, please, I want you to stay and teach." So I taught one day a week, and that turned into 2 days a week, and that turned into 5 days a week, and that turned into 6 days a week. And I truly loved it. And so I taught there. She ended up selling the studio to another woman who was not professional, not the way she was. And we were not a good fit. And so I got fired and hired at a different studio. And it was difficult because I'm a pretty outspoken person. And when I felt that teachers were not doing their job, I would say, they're not teaching the kids the way they're supposed to be taught. So eventually I knew the only way I could go on to be a teacher and do it at the level I knew I wanted to be teaching at was to have my own studio. And I didn't even know how that was going to happen, because at that point I was divorced. I was a mom that was teaching to survive. And I I called a meeting of parents, and said, I want to let them all know that I'm probably going to be fired from this place too, because I opened my big mouth again. And I wanted them to know that I was not going to abandon their kids. I would figure something out. And I called a meeting, and I thought, this is insane. I mean, they're just going to see me as some kook, another crazy artist with some, crazy idea that's just got, her head in the clouds. And I was so embarrassed. I had, like I told my husband my second husband, Scott, that he was to get a appetizer platter. So when all the parents came, and when he picked me up from work to bring me home, I said to him, I mean, this is insane. What am I thinking? They're going to just think I'm a nutcase. They're not going to believe in me. This is ridiculous. How stupid am I? And I was terrified all of a sudden. And I went home, and we're kind of straightening up the living room, thinking nobody's going to show up. And lo and behold, parent by parent came in the door. I probably had about 12 parents in my
Wow.
house. And I made the announcement. I told them, and I said, at this point in time, I don't know what to tell you. I'd already been fired from a few places, and they had followed me from studio to studio. And I said, I don't know what to say, but I have no intention of abandoning your kids. But at this point in time, the only thing I can say is that in order for me to teach at the level that I want to be teaching at, I'm going to have my own studio. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but that is what I intend to do. And I have to figure it out. That was my little speech that I gave. And a dad stood up and he said, well, I don't know about any of you, but I totally and fully believe in Lisa. My daughter adores her and loves dance more than anything in the world. And I want to support her, and I'm willing to put this many dollars in. And another dad stood up and he said, I feel the same way, and I'm going to give X amount of dollars. And it went like that. And I started that studio on their money, not on mine. I had no money. So
That's
that's how I
that is
how I opened the
beautiful.
studio.
That's so powerful, just off of the strength of, hey, I'm doing it. I need your support. And they're like, "Okay, you've got our support." That's perfect. How important is that, I guess, teacher-student relationship for you? And
It's so important to me, and that's why I feel that I have to have a smaller school. My studio's always been a one-room studio. I've never had a lot of students, and I feel that's important. I don't want to be a factory. I'm not that person. There are plenty of studios that are like that, the competition studios, the very big studios that have, 300, 500 students. That's not my dream. My dream is to be more of a mentor, to be someone there for the kids, to know that they know that I have their back, that I will take them all the way, and that I have the know how to do that. So that is very important, and I feel like I got that because of my relationship with Melissa Hayden. She was truly a mentor, and as difficult of a woman as she was, she did love me. She believed in me, and she is the reason why I succeeded as a dancer. And I had a few of those along my path. Willie Berman, who also danced with New York City Ballet, had was very famous in New York. He was taken with COVID, the second
sorry to
week
hear that.
of the whole pandemic. Yeah. So the ballet world lost a tremendous teacher. Um, but he was a very dear friend and a mentor to me as well. And I knew that I could, while Millie was alive, I could call her anytime and we could talk. She went on to teach at North Carolina School of the Arts after having her own studio in New York City. And Willie was at Steps in New York City. So I had both of them to always be there for me. So, yes, being a mentor to my students is extremely important to me. And I can't say that I've had a lot of the kids go on to be professional dancers. Many of them had that dream, and many of them would go to School of American Ballet, Pacific Northwest Ballet, Boston Ballet, Suzanne Farrell's program, many excellent schools in the country. But one of the things that I always say is that it's not just talent that gets you as a ballet dancer. Your internal fortitude has to be so powerful because it's such a difficult field to be in. And so they had to learn that on their own. They attempted to move into that direction. But one of the things that I've always said is that my training is intense. I teach discipline and focus, belief in self, willpower. And if you stay with me, you will be successful in whatever you decide to do. So I've had girls who've returned as young women who've become doctors, professors, engineers, scientists, lawyers, and they've all said to me, I want you to know that the reason I succeeded was because I had you who taught me, what it took to be successful. So I'm really proud of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm trying not to get choked up on this interview, y'all. Just you see me glassy. There's so many beautiful things. So like this organization, the Ashe Academy, is meant to, support people who try or students of color trying to go into the arts and STEM. And I always talk about there's a beautiful moment of there is a crossover always between if it's the sciences or if it's the arts, there is a part in the middle where, hey, I might be an artist, but I might love math. So it doesn't have to be just right brain, left brain. Like there's all this in between that could happen, and everyone needs each other at the end of the day. So that's just a beautiful moment where your philosophy, the things that you're imparting on people, are more important than the actual, I guess, steps, you could say, if I was really to
Right.
boil it down. So that's excellent. Let's take another moment to reflect a little bit, and let's talk about some representation. Um, did you have a lot of, I guess, peers who looked like you along the way? Um, did you experience a lot of tokenism, or tell us about it, because I have no clue what your experience was with the other dancers.
Well, I think I was, um, there was not a lot of people of color in the ballet world. We know it's a very elitist world. It has always been a very elitist world, and very white. Um, but I have never, I don't think I really ever defined myself as a person of color, though there have been times when I've felt that, as anybody who is a person of color has felt those things that are unspoken, unseen. We know when we have that feeling. But I never saw myself as that. I saw myself as who I am. And I think, like I said, my parents were both very outspoken people, great belief in self, always had a lot of confidence. And so I think that spilled over into me. They never felt less than anybody. And so I met the world with as me, just who I am. Um, and so I think that's how people saw me. It wasn't necessarily my color that stood out or my ethnicity, but my sheer determination and my drive and my belief in self. That doesn't mean that I wasn't quaking inside of myself a lot of the times in auditions or whatever. So I don't want, I want everyone to realize that we're all scared. I mean, it's very scary when you're trying to become something or become, successful in some field, especially in the performing arts where you're so out there and you're being judged all the time by how you look, what you're able to do. It's not academic, so you could put all the things you want on your resume and claim you've been this or that or taught by this or that. But at the end of the day, in the ballet world, in the dance field, they just want to see, then dance, show me what you can do. And you know what? If you fall on your face, that's pretty much not going to matter what was on your resume, is it? So Millie that was never any issue whatsoever. My next mentor teacher was Lupe Serrano, who was a very famous ballerina with American Ballet Theater. She was the director of Pennsylvania Ballet School, and I joined the apprentice program there, and she also really helped me along the way. She believed in me. She really believed in me. And that gave me confidence as well. But she was Spanish. Um, so I can't say that I had to go up against anything, but like I said, there were very few people of color in the dance world, in the ballet world. And you definitely, the even fewer Black dancers. Arthur Mitchell, one of the most famous male Black dancers, who was a principal dancer with New York City Ballet. I believe it was Martin Luther King, when he was killed. It spurred him on. He left New York City Ballet and founded Dance Theater of Harlem. So he created an incredible, world for the Black dancers to go into. And I was very fortunate because when I was 17, Millie had to. There's something called the Capizio Dance Awards, which still exist to this day, and they choose. I believe, and I think it's still this way. They pick 3 dancers, illustrious dancers, in their field once a year. And so these were the early days of the Capizio Dance Awards, and Millie was dubbed to present Arthur Mitchell with his award. And she took me to the awards and she gave that to him. So Arthur Mitchell got it that year. I believe that would have been 75. And that same year, Alvin Ailey, who grew up here in Los Angeles and has the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, another very famous company, it's contemporary dance, also was awarded with that Capizio Dance Award that same year. So I got to be in that room when they both were awarded that year.
Awesome, awesome. Wow, the rooms that you have been in, I'm sure, just amazing. Do you have any favorite moments throughout your whole career that you're like, okay, if I could pick one thing, or like of the greatest hits, what would you say that would be?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I was so blessed and fortunate, the things that I got to witness, I got to be a part of, I got to do because of Melissa Hayden's position and who she was. We were given, she could ask to do any ballet. In this day and age, you have to pay a very high price to do any kind of a Balanchine ballet. But because of her title, she was allowed to do any ballet she wanted. And so she gave me the principal part of Stars and Stripes, which is a very famous Balanchine ballet, and personally taught it to me. So that's one of the highlights of my career. I did the lead of Stars and Stripes many times. And I got to do it with Paul Mejia, who was at that time the husband of Suzanne Farrell and had been also a soloist with New York City Ballet. So that was a big highlight, and I was only 17 at that time, so it was big. And then when I got my first, I actually still remember my very first paycheck at Pacific Northwest Ballet when it was handed to me. That's another moment where I opened it up and I was awestruck. I could not, but I still remember saying to Don, who was Melissa's husband, as he gave me the check, I said, I can't believe this. I'm getting paid to do what I love to do. I can't even believe that this is real. So, and then, just getting to be a dancer in the various companies, um, you know.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I know it's not all roses, so can you reflect on maybe one of the more challenging times throughout your career? Because, every dancer is going to have some bad moments. So giving them a heads up, what would you say, like something to look out for? Um,
Difficult personalities that exist
That's any
tremendously.
industry, every industry, difficult people, energies, and
Yes,
personalities. Yes.
yes. And I would say that's probably one of the big pitfalls that you could come across, and not unlikely for most dancers. Have we had somebody in our lives or throughout our career that have tested the meter of us? Um, it's just that's part of the dance world. I don't know if it comes with the territory of the dance world, but I'm sure it happens in the movie industry, many industries. But the performing arts is not unusual. What was that famous movie? He was a drummer. I don't know. The movie may be like 7 years old, something like that. I can't remember what it was called. Um, oh, Whiplash. Scott just reminded
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Um, that's not an uncommon story. I hate to say it, but always remember that so Millie could be that to me. Millie could do that to me. She was a very, very difficult personality, always testing you, always trying to see, can she break you? But I also believe that part of it was she knew what we were up against. Um, I There was another young woman, Eleanor Langton, who ended up opening up her studio a couple years after me. We're still close to this day. And neither of us, we both knew that had we not crossed our paths with Melissa, we would never have made it as dancers. She gave it to us. She gave it to us full force. And honestly, there were times when I questioned, I don't know if I can go on. But so my point is that a person can be very difficult, but they can also, in that, totally believe in you. But they're testing you all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what's some of the worst advice you have received over the years?
Well, it's not necessarily advice, but I would say along my path, especially when I was younger, I was told I wasn't ever going to make it as a dancer, that I didn't have the physical attributes that I would make it as a dancer. And so one of the things that I'll often have parents, or mostly parents, not necessarily the kids, but parents who will say to me, well, does my daughter have it? Will she make it as a dancer? Can you tell me? I want to know if we're putting this money into it, will she make it as a dancer? Here's my answer to that. I am not God. Nobody is. And nobody can say whether you're going to make it or not. Nobody can say that, because I was told too many times that I was not going to make it as a dancer. And I wasn't going to allow that to define me. So don't allow someone else to define who you are or what you're going to achieve. That's what I would have to say. There are going to be a lot of naysayers along your path. But one of the things I say to my kids who will come back to me after they've gone to a summer intensive, they'll come back with their tail between their legs, and I'll say to them, what's wrong? I can see you're down. What's wrong? I just don't think I'm going to make it as a dancer. And here's what I say. Well, guess what? If you don't believe in you, nobody's going to believe in you. So that's where you have to start. First, believe in yourself, and then show up every day. Show up and do the work.
Absolutely. So, on the flip side, what's some of the best advice you have received?
The people that really made it, who were there, so Millie, as difficult as she was, Willie, they would say, just keep working hard. You can do it. And that's what I say to my kids. Just show up and do the work. I know what I'm doing. Now you have to do what I'm telling you to do. And find a good teacher. Find somebody that knows what they're doing, but truly knows what they're doing. Not just says that they know what they're doing.
Awesome, awesome. I can't tell people how many times that has rung true for me, where I'm just minding my business, doing the work, not trying to force it, not looking for accolades, not looking for things out of it. Just like, here's the intention. This is the mission. Do the mission. All of a sudden, things are happening. So powerful. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, aside from all of the arts and everything in your beautiful career, what brings you joy?
I love traveling. I think it's one of the greatest educations you can have. I'm a great believer in travel. So all my kids, we took them everywhere. We always traveled as a family. So, we went to Mexico. We went all over the United States. My younger ones have been to Alaska as well. We've been through Europe, a lot of Europe. And as a result of my love of travel, I've given that to them. So they all love traveling too. That gives me great joy. I love art. I love going to museums. I love reading. I especially love historical fiction, because that's how I learn my history. And I love knitting, which sounds really funny, because it's like, I used to see people knitting and be like, oh, that looks horrible. And I happened to pick it up several years ago, and would become discouraged. But those were the days before YouTube. And then once YouTube came on, oh man, I just love YouTube. Whenever I get stuck on something, I just turn on YouTube and learn how to do it. But that also gives me great joy. So
Awesome, awesome. Yes, YouTube University has many a scholars. This is the perfect time to get into our Q&A section. So let's go ahead and do that. Who is your biggest inspiration?
well, oh my gosh, I've had so many people that have inspired me um, through my career. Melissa was a huge inspiration for me, but many dancers were my inspiration. Artists, I would say, in all aspects, have been my inspiration. So
Awesome, awesome.
I can't say one in particular.
You're like, I'm not doing it. I'm not giving you one
Too
person.
too many, too many to choose from.
Okay. Who do you hope to uplift with your work?
My kids, all my students, I love being there for them. I love seeing them get excited at getting better and better. And I know what I'm capable of doing. So they may come to me downtrodden from other schools, saying, I'm not very good. I can't, they told me I'm not any good. And I said, well, do the work, do what I tell you to do. And to watch them light up and change and blossom and just soar is just, for me, I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's who I look to inspire, are the kids that become my students.
Awesome, awesome. And last but not least, how do you stay engaged with your motivation? So what keeps you going?
What keeps me going are the kids. I really, I'm inspired by a lot of things. I'm not a person that gets down very easily, or gives up. Um, it's been a difficult time. This whole pandemic has been a terrible time for the dance world, for many worlds, but for dancers who have to move, so difficult. And we're raised with someone in that room with us all the time, schooling us every day. So to be separated from that, that was probably one of the most important aspects of me teaching on Zoom, was to teach them at the highest level I could, but at the end of every single class, make all of them come to the screen after we were done with class and talk to them and say, you guys, just remember this is not going to be forever. And if you continue to do what I'm giving you in class, you will continue to progress. You will get good. And I want you to remember that it's not just dance that we live for. There's a lot of things. Find something that sparks your interest. So I would ask them, I would say, what have you done? Who can raise their hand and tell me? Well, someone would raise their hand. I started trying painting. Fantastic. Good for you. Okay. Oh, I started learning how to cook. Great. Anything that is the creative process. So,
Beautiful.
but yeah, I just try to keep the kids inspired, and that's what inspires me.
Perfect. So what's next for you? You just spoke about teaching on Zoom. Is there anything upcoming for you guys? I know it is a difficult time for the performing arts just in general, but
Well, we usually do a performance every year, and last year, just like everybody else and every company in the world, we couldn't do it. Um, so I don't know. I have a very strong feeling we're going to continue very much in this vein for the year of 2021. So we don't have any big plans. I usually give a summer intensive. I did it even last summer with all the protocols in place, and had a 4-week summer intensive. My intention is to have another summer intensive. And I offer that because the national summer intensives are so expensive, and not everyone can afford them. And I don't think that's fair. I think it's very rough. It's not like when I was a kid, as I said, when we were invited to these national schools, they meant you're invited. It's free at this point, right?
Mhm.
That is not the case anymore. When they say when they have invited you, they mean now fork out $8,000 to $10,000. So I have always offered a summer intensive since I started my school. And I'm really tough on the kids, but they progress so much. And I love it, and they love it. They love that at the end of the whole program, they have seen themselves become so good, and that's fun and exciting for all of us. But other than that, no, I don't have no no huge plans because of this whole pandemic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, hopefully this would help shine some light and inspire some people to start those classes, because the performing arts, although are required to be around people for the most part, like all these industries that require you to literally be around people to perform, have taken a hit, but we have found ways to innovate. Like this podcast is hey, the Ashe Academy is not doing nothing just
Yes,
because we can't be around people. So we will talk to people. I love interviewing. I'm
absolutely.
nosy, so I will do it. So I appreciate that so much. How can people get in contact with you?
They can find my website, which is cuizonballet.com. And on that website, you'll see pictures, there's videos available, bios, you'll see our class schedule, and there you'll have contact numbers up there, contact numbers as well as emails. But yeah, I love teaching. You know, if ballet is something that you want to become good at, I'm here.
Absolutely. This is Lisa Cuizon. Thank you so very much for joining us for the Ashe Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage. I'm Sammy Ashe, the Executive Director of the Ashe Academy. Everyone, take care. Bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Absolutely.